The chat today is fully human, fully divine. It is about the true human, the concept, the notion of true human, true humanity. And I would like to draw from different perspectives, different approaches in the East and in the West. When I speak about the East, I'm speaking about India, Indian thought, which is we're doing yoga, and so it makes sense that we look at things from that specific lens. And when I speak about the West, I'm going to refer to some of the movements that are at the very core of our upbringing in Western Europe that are important for us. These movements, especially those who have been joining for these meetings, they are familiar with them already. If you have not joined, you might not be that familiar. But we're talking about the early Christ movements, which is not the same as Christianity. Just to give you a bit of a context, a framework, Christianity was institutionalized as a religion in the 4th century. It's part of the Roman Empire. But before that, there were 4 centuries where there were different people that were following Christ's teachings. Not only Christ's teachings, but also many men and women sharing those teachings. And some of those teachings were left out when official Christianity was formed, was institutionalized. Many of those teachings were categorized as apocryphae, which means of doubtful veracity, and they were excluded from the official narrative, from the canon, the Christian canon. However, I stumbled upon these teachings quite recently, a few months ago only, but what I find really radical about them is that there are so many parallels with what we do in yoga practice. And I'm sharing these teachings because to me, it shows that they represent human quest for truth, regardless of culture, regardless of tradition, regardless of religion. They do represent this thirst that humans have for understanding, have for unity, have for understanding also the nature of us as spiritual beings, responding to the questions of who am I, what am I doing here, what is this about? Yeah. So these movements are really, the early Christ movements are really radical, especially in the 1st, 2nd century context. We're looking at the Roman Empire, which was a time where all the power was in the hands of the emperor. Your power was also, as an individual, was defined by how close to the emperor you were. And these teachings, the early Christ movements and the teachings of Christ, were about your power is not defined by the emperor. The emperor is just a human being, just the same you are, and your power is defined by your ability to go inward and find answers within you, which is very much connected to what we do in yoga. This concept of viveka, which is discernment based on pratyaksha, practical experience, it is something that we find in this early Christ movement as well. We just call it gnosis, which is discernment based on practical experience. And so what we do in yoga is very much based on practice, because that is how we acquire wisdom. That is how we become wise. That's how we acquire real knowledge, which in the Bhagavad Gita will be called Sthita Prajna, steady wisdom. It doesn't come from thinking, it comes from actually doing again and again. And so I consider that these teachings are very powerful because of that, and not only that, also because they're very close to our Western upbringing. I think we need to understand our roots, to understand ourselves. And also, women in this time, in this first, second century context, they had a lot of power, not in society. A woman's power was bound to her father first, and then her husband. But early Christianity, a woman was as powerful as she was able to go inward, the same as a man. And she was able to teach other people. She did not have these subordinated roles that we see across the globe. It was equal in that sense, equal authority. Not recognized in society, but in this specific movement. And so I think this is very important for us to explore as well as women. So there was a contemplative tradition in early Christ movement that was called the hesychus, and that means stillness. Something that we do in yoga all the